Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
I'm not a tough guy. I knew I'm staying my ass inside. And the fucking FBI is on speed dial, bro. Not a fucking tough guy. You people say things about snitching. I'm fucking snitching, bro. What are you talking about?
The Great Boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, we're back in the beautiful place where it all started for us, the Harmony Hotel in Nosara, Costa Rica. Does that mean it's curtains for us after this week is over?
You mean, have we been sandwiched into our final, last farewell episodes?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, this is where it all started, and this is probably where it all ends.
It's not a bad way to go out.
No, it really isn't. Yeah. If we had to end the podcast, this would be the place to do it.
That's right. The only thing, if we die in a horrible plane crash on the way home, I just hope that these uploaded to the cloud.
Mm-hmm. And that archivists can find, somewhere how to access them and then decide whether or not. Because I don't know if you put this, but I put for all unedited episodes, raw audio to be burned.
Yeah, yeah, me too. It's a good thing because it would be very awkward for only one side of the conversation.
Well, I mean, it's a real ethical question whether or not they should honor my wishes or whether the world just deserves to hear some of our unedited episodes, raw audio,
You, like the unreleased Sam Harris audio that everybody was clamoring for. You are, my friend, alluding to the fact that because of someone's ethical breach, we have the book that we are going to be discussing in the main segment, only because somebody was willing to tell Kafka's dead ghost to fuck off.
We'll talk about that ethical dilemma maybe when we lead off. Yeah, so we're going to talk about The Trial. Franz Kafka's The Trial, and what we think, although we're not sure yet, will be a two-part episode because there's a lot to talk about with that book.
That's right. And we don't want to record more because we're in fucking Costa Rica.
Yeah, exactly. In this studio, which is very nice.
Yes, very nice studio they have for us.
Called Outpost. If you ever stop by Nosara, Costa Rica, and you have to record a podcast.
In a pinch. Wouldn't it be funny if just you're so addicted to podcasting that late at night it's 2 a.m. and you just have this you're just fiending to record an episode and you just come up like a crackhead and can I rent out your studio?
I just start doing opening questions and then responding to them as you. I'm Dave Pizarro. That was more the nerd from The Simpsons, I guess, than you.
Was that what that was?
All right, so we have to talk about something serious, though, in the opening segment. And I know it's usually more lighthearted, and I know that I've taken the piss on social psychologists in the past. And, I think often justified, maybe sometimes not justified. But I think now, I have to rethink all my criticisms because your colleagues, your brethren, have written a letter to end the ongoing, as we're recording anyway, ongoing invasion of Ukraine. They have written a letter, your social psychologist colleagues, to Vladimir Putin to just, maybe rethink his current aspirations regarding Ukraine.
And you know what I just noticed is at the top of the PDF, at least that we have. I think it might have been taken down from its original site, but
I think it definitely was. Yeah.
But it says Psychologists for Peace. Like they're an official organization, like the We Are the World. It wasn't like the We Are the World people. It was like, Singers Against Hunger or something.
Yeah, rock and rollers. I don't often compare things to Sun City, but this is I think the closest that we've gotten in a long time.
To what?
Sun City, when a lot of rock stars refused to play Sun City because of the apartheid in South Africa. And there was a song, right? Like, ain't gonna play Sun City.
I do not remember that. But yes, this is it's not even strongly worded.
I think, it's empirically rigorous and backed up,
Right. So
which
you don't
I think
need strong words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, often with world leaders, if you start, aggressive or antagonistic, they might be less likely to absorb the information you're giving them.
They might stop reading.
They might stop reading, exactly. But
Can I just say before I go on to lightly mock my colleagues, I'm not doing anything. So I don't want to take away if people are feeling desperate and need to feel like they're doing something. These people got together and they put together a letter. So I grant them that. They're in many ways better than me.
Yeah. And as far as I know, the address at the top is correct. But I don't.
Do you think they put it in the mail?
I don't know. I would love to. I don't know if that was covered in in the stories about it, but I don't know how they plan to get this letter into it. Maybe like CIA. They had to give up one of their agents just so he would get this letter in.
Carrier pigeons.
All right. So should we just go through it?
Yeah. So let's say that this is how many? There's like 40. I think 40 psychologists, mostly from Europe. Mm-hmm. A few from Latin America and a couple from the U.S., which is neither here nor there.
And I would assume, this is purely speculation on my part, but I would assume they're older people, given the references that they put in the letter, the studies that they cite.
They're definitely tenured. they were able to stop reading in 2012.
2012 being like really 1995 when you look up that study.
Okay, so let's ask our audience to pretend that they are Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
And they have just, like, a messenger has just run into their office and handed them this paper and said, Mr. President, it's very important that you read this.
Meanwhile, your country is, facing sanctions. The ruble has collapsing. So think about that as you're reading this.
You've also poisoned about 89 people.
89 is extremely conservative, I think. And you're in the midst of an invasion that is going less smoothly than you perhaps predicted.
Yeah. All right. So, Mr. President, we are contacting you to share with you our academic and practical knowledge about the consequences of initiating a war for the instigator. See, they're appealing to his self-interest.
Yeah.
And to offer a glimpse of a possible way out of such a perilous situation.
It's really important, to nail that first sentence so that Putin doesn't stop reading right now.
I'm sorry. We believe that we can all agree about the sad and dramatic consequences that war has for innocent citizens in the countries involved, as well as for soldiers conducting it. Physical injury, psychological trauma, death.
Yeah, I think we could all agree. That has been known to happen in wars. Yeah.
Well, you might not know. Despite that, for political leaders, the instigation of a violent fight with external forces often offers the attractive perspective that such a situation of insecurity and feelings of threat increases one's own citizens' national identification and admiration for a powerful leader. So they're saying, look, we know that war is you want to be a wartime president.
Right. And to back up that empirical claim that feelings of threat increases one's own citizens' national identification, they cite Sherif et al. 1961. Now, I looked this up. And it's the very famous Robbers Cave experiment.
Yes.
Muzaffar Sherif argued that intergroup conflict occurs when two groups are in competition for limited resources. This theory is supported by evidence from a famous study investigating group conflict, the Robbers Cave experiment. Here's the key takeaways. In the Robbers Cave experiment, 22 white 11-year-old boys were sent to a special remote summer camp in Oklahoma Robbers Cave State Park. This is the study that they're citing. 22 11-year-old white Oklahoma kids were sent to a state park in Oklahoma and then developed attachments to their groups, chose names for their groups, the Eagles and the Rattlers, and then had competition where between the groups, prejudice began to become apparent between the two groups. Now, obviously we hope that Putin, goes to the actual study, but there is a very helpful summary for this on the website Simple Psychology. So here's where I think this letter becomes, at first it's just, oh, that's lame, but there are these old social psychologist dudes who are like, we should stop a war if we can. But them citing this like it has relevance to what Vladimir Putin takes himself to be doing here. 22 white kids in Oklahoma is going to somehow, have relevance. Just now it almost seems like it's a joke.
Apparently, Tamler, you're not familiar with the clear evidence that was put forth by Sherif in 1961. The Rattlers and the Eagles started treating each other pretty badly. And Sherif found a way out. He made their bus break down and they had to join together and fix it. So, are you telling me that this is not relevant? Is this...
That this summer experience for these 22 Oklahoma kids might not be immediately obvious to Putin how that bears on his own decisions during the crisis.
Well, as you say, I only hope Mr. Putin actually reads the original paper, because listening to you summarize it is not doing it justice.
I mean, I didn't say anything inaccurate, did I?
No, but you emphasized white. And, I just want to point out they're white too, It's
yeah,
just generalizability.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean, I wasn't saying that I was making this about race. You're making it about race.
Maybe a little bit. Okay. Such effects of increased national identification, the letter continues, and leader admiration are, however, of a short-term nature. They are usually then replaced by mid to long-term negative effects. See, they're not certain. They're not making crazy claims that they know it's midterm or
right. So now it's actually, that study is meant to show that Putin might feel powerful and that his own citizens might respect him more.
Right.
Yeah.
But beware, because they're usually then replaced by mid to long-term negative effects for political leaders who are perceived to be responsible for the war. It's bringing in the attribution literature.
Yep.
This letter informs you about some of these effects, and now some bullet points. Do you want to take some of the bullet points?
Citizens on both sides in a war suffer from national isolation. Human beings are dependent on an appropriate mixture of the familiar and the novel. They simultaneously look for inclusion and differentiation. Brewer, 1991. Did you look that up?
No, I did not.
I did. The social self on being the same and different at the same time. By Marilyn Brewer. Most of social psychologists' theories of self fail to take into account the significance of social identification in the definition of self. Social identities are self-definitions that are more inclusive than the individuated self-concept of most American psychology. A model of open distinctiveness is proposed in which social identity is viewed as reconciliation of opposing needs for assimilation and differentiation from others. So, I mean, I know I was joking about how... maybe the Sherif et al. 1961 might not be as relevant as the psychologists believe. But this one, I mean, it's so clear that even Putin is going to be like, oh, okay, right, I forgot about Brewer 1991.
Right, this is this paper is, the theory is known as optimal distinctiveness theory. And yeah, it says exactly, what Tamler said, which is sometimes you want to be different and sometimes you want to be the same, because being the same sometimes feels good, but being different also sometimes feels good. And so take that, Putin. Withdraw your troops.
Yeah, with like just while there's still time, you know. Yeah, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, wars create severe economic problems, up to full-blown crashes on both sides. Citizens typically compare their current economic situation with the situation before the war began and soon recognize that they are losing out. Feelings of deprivation are usually the basis for resistance, protest, and revolution against existing state institutions. Foster and Matheson, 2012.
Okay, do you know this
No,
stuff?
that's the one I don't know, actually.
Abstract double relative deprivation, which has been virtually ignored in research on relative deprivation, was expected to predict women's collective action over and above egoistic and collective deprivation. The role of socio-political forces in perceiving deprivation and participation in action was also investigated. So this is just female students, only female students. This
I think you need to
theory.
balance out the Robbers Cave study that was only boys.
Right, that's true. Now, I don't know Putin's reputation when it comes to the ladies, but you know, maybe this. I mean, I don't know if this is what they're thinking, but maybe you know, he may want women not to protest and revolt against him.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that their sons are dying wasn't enough of a predictor that they might have feelings about it.
That's anecdotal. It's just.
I feel terrible being this snarky about it, but there is a point to the snark that we'll get to. I promise, because
You're taking this very seriously in a way that's like.
Well, I suggested it. I'm just saying there is, I know, a level of snarkiness that can be hard to listen to when there's a war going on. But there's a point that this is, I think, deserving of mockery, and we're gonna get I just want to.
And there's a deep moral purpose to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So point 2 was, don't you know that war might make people have economic difficulties, and they're going to start revolting against you.
Women
especially.
at least. We don't know about men.
The research has to be done.
Yeah. Further research.
Yeah.
The conduct of war often involves active misinformation about the success of one's own troops and losses of the enemy, about the moral superiority of one's own group, and the damnable motivations of the opposite side. Tajfel, 1977. I don't think I looked this one up.
Yeah, it's some in-group, out-group shit, I'm sure.
Yeah. But this is where Putin starts to think, well, am I attributing falsely kind of motives to Zelensky and the Ukrainian leaders, where maybe, like that's some sort of bias, in-group bias that I'm feeling right now,
There's just this deep irony about pointing out that misinformation is involved in war to Putin himself.
KGB, military.
They tell us about misinformation. They're telling us.
That's good.
Who are these people? Right. The creation of such a world consumes resources, and leaders end up in isolation within a bubble of naysayers, always endangered by the threat of being unmasked.
Now, I don't know if this is an illusion, but Putin is apparently paranoid about COVID.
They're using some
Yeah.
they're using some psyops themselves.
Exactly.
The real social psychology isn't in the citations.
That's what this is. This is just CIA. This has CIA written all over it.
Exactly.
Finding oneself in a situation of maximum insecurity about what is right and wrong and uncertainty about the future activates citizens' desire for explanations. This is a funny one. Festinger, 1954.
Was that just the cognitive dissonance book? It's just is 1954 the book?
But that's also if you invade a neighboring country, the citizens might want more information about what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, it's a social comparison book. Yeah, basically a theory of social comparison processes. It's like, when you're doing a report in high school and you just need some parenthetical references to make it sound like you know what you're talking about. But these are emeritus professors.
These some of these studies are 70 years old.
Yeah, and some of them aren't even studies. This will ultimately end up in a perception of reality as it actually is. people will discover who is responsible for starting the war and for all the consequent suffering, injuries, and death.
So is this like trying to figure out what this is supposed to be saying to Putin? Is the assumption that Putin might think that the Ukrainians started it and that they're responsible and because of the misinformation, and so...
But like people will find out.
Eventually, Putin,
People haven't even found out why JFK was killed.
Ask not for whom the bell tolls, Putin. It tolls for thee. Yeah, no, it's true. Nobody, people have found out who killed Kennedy. We don't know which agent did it, but...
The processes described above often generate an increasing application of state power and brutal repression. But isn't that what he's going for?
That's right.
Like, isn't he like, oh, sweet. This is backed up. This is backed up by French and Raven, 1959.
Yeah, he's probably psyched about that. Yeah. It's like probably going to quote that to his, cabinet. However, though, you see, you didn't read the however. However, such repression also ends up with increased rejection, isolation, and physical endangerment of the political leaders perceived to be responsible. You know who didn't take this kind of advice?
Who?
Napoleon. and look at what happened to him. Exiled to some island.
That's why Hitler, ate that gun.
Oh, no, he just went to your country, Argentina, lived out like a long, natural, flourishing life.
Just shaved his mustache and nobody recognized him.
Yeah, that was impressive. I mean, even I have to admire just the simplicity of that kind of genius move. Everyone knows me by my mustache.
So here we get to the final. So you always want a plan of action. You want to give a call to action, a way out. They've set up the dilemma. Like if he keeps going down this path, he's going to end up maskless. In a bunker, in a spider hole like Hussein.
Just when the new variant has come out.
Right. So the letter ends, what can be done to mitigate against such a predictable, disastrous development? From our psychological point of view, the primary recommendation is to immediately stop shooting, stop bombarding, stop fighting, and stop killing. Think again about the reasons for your decision to go to war and what can ultimately be achieved with this violence for the Russian people as well as for you personally. Think again about the alternative of a peaceful coexistence with neighboring countries. Think again about the minimal conditions for ending up in a durable peace agreement. And above all, remain open for negotiations. Yours faithfully.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that by the time we release this episode, he will have withdrawn all troops from Ukraine.
If he gets the letter.
Just kind of sent an apology.
Well, the letter was taken down, so how do we know he's going to get it?
Well, I think it was taken down because of, people were worried about something exactly like what is happening right now. That's my prediction.
I'm very sorry, professors, doctors, Rolf Van Dijk and Dr. Ulrich Wagner.
All right, so because I didn't know really that there was a deep moral purpose other than I think it is just moral to make fun of social psychologists.
No, where I wanted to go with this after mocking it is there is a profound, I read this sincerely. So I take it that this letter was written with all sincerity and signed with all sincerity. They got together. They said, what can the literature tell us about this? It just seems to me so hubristic to think that this research could have an effect on a world leader, that if shared, it would actually make a difference, that the research itself is conclusively saying anything about these processes.
Well, that's one of the most absurd aspects of it.
Well, to the point that I want to write an open letter to these people to say, how could you get into this mindset to think that this stuff is actually that relevant?
Yeah.
It's because I really am taking it at face value that this is a sincere call. Look, have you read Sherif, 1961?
Yeah.
Where it's like, really? This is worse than nothing.
Yeah, it's definitely worse. That's why we are better.
That's why
morally.
We're morally better. But that any of these points required a reference to be powerful. Do you know that, war ends in death? Dear Herr Putin.
But that is just a tick that psychologists have, and maybe scientists in general, of every time they make a kind of an obvious point, they just randomly select some studies and then just, and it could be like Kant, 1751 or something like that,
Yes. Absolutely.
It's just like, it just like automatically gives this veneer of, this isn't just us talking here. This was 22 white Oklahoma kids.
Do you want to know a dirty secret about, I think, most psychologists? Well, probably most anybody who writes papers, so you're probably in on it. If you get cited, like our currency is to get cited.
Yeah.
Right? If you get cited, sometimes you see a new paper, you look and see that they cited you. A lot of the times what they're saying you said isn't really what you said.
Right.
But how many times does anybody ever contact that original author and say, hey, by the way, I think you should pull that reference.
Right.
I didn't really say that. No, we like being cited. So it just sort of continues this cycle. I think a really good exercise for students is to take a review article, look up all of the things that are cited and what the claims are that they're being cited for, and just do a little code for how many of them really say what they say. I've been cited as saying the exact opposite of what my paper said.
Right, I remember. I think we did an episode on that. I'm assuming Sherif, Muzafer Sherif, I'm assuming he's been dead for 40 to 50 years. Yes. But I imagine he wouldn't want to be...
His H index lives on.
Does this count as a citation?
I don't think so.
Do you get from Google Scholar, your paper has been cited?
If it did, I would just be writing open letters, citing my shit to everyone.
All right, so we should do an open letter to Psychologists for Peace. The hubris and the absurdity of this letter has raised our indignation, and people who are the targets of indignation from others tend to be more dehumanized, according to...
Oh God! Yeah, I feel like you're teasing, but also revealing the fact that we're going to do another opening segment right after this.
Yeah, it's true. We're in this studio for probably not that much longer. So,
but it's like this. You should have this humility at least to know. It does really sound like these researchers have not even paid attention to the fact that things are hard to replicate in social psychology. And as much as I defend, I've been adamant about saying look, replication is good, but generalizability is not as big a concern as some people seem to think, so long as you point out that what you're studying is a narrow band of people and you're hypothesis testing. I'm on record saying all that stuff. It's like these people, though, have never really... all of that just went by, and they're perfectly fine citing studies with 22 people.
Yeah, and generalization was just assumed.
Yes,
that's how the Stanford prison experiment could be cited and used and employed in all those contexts, and I fell for it.
Yeah, sucker.
I know.
We all knew.
You all knew all along. You psychologists for quote unquote peace, psychologists for deception and career advancement.
We are the children. Given that we're in a real studio here, I feel like just breaking out in song.
Yeah.
Psychologists for Peace. We're gonna make a beat.
I
can make a beat for Putin. Stop bombing, boom, boom, Ukraine. Boom, boom.
Podcasters and beat makers for peace. Yeah, but seriously, Putin, if you're listening to this,
just stop.
Just stop it. Is this going to end? This could end either badly or really fucking badly. If you start feeling like you have nothing to lose.
Right.
Retzinger et al. 1942.
Do you feel a little bit bad taking war so lightheartedly?
Yeah, of course. But what are you going to do?
You can't. We laugh to keep from crying. That's my motto for life.
My people would make fun of the Holocaust. That's just, it's the gallows humor is Jewish currency. It is true. In addition to just all the other currencies we control.
That's what we have to end there. We have to end right there.
We'll be right back to talk about Franz Kafka, speaking of great Jews, the trial.
Dave, I'm feeling a pleasant buzz right now. I don't know if you can tell.
I assume you're not drinking because it's actually kind of early in the day.
It's a little early. Well, actually, I am drinking, but I'm not drinking alcohol. For once.
Are you drinking the tea?
I am drinking for the first time ever kratom tea.
Wow.
Yes, from Super Speciosa, our newest sponsor, or one of our newest sponsors this time.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
I like the tea. It's a nice buzz. It's relaxing. It's energizing, but I don't feel at all tired. This shit is good.
That's so yeah, we're talking about Super Speciosa Kratom, and I was recalling that like a few years ago, you were the one who first put me on to Kratom. Like I had never heard of it.
And I honestly don't remember how I heard about it. It was one of those weird things where most people just have no idea what you're talking about if you mention kratom, but I think both of us over the last few years have become quite enthusiastic about
Fans.
What is kratom? It's a super leaf.
Yeah. An all-natural ancient super leaf.
that is related to the coffee plant. I don't know how that relation.
They're like third cousins.
It's been used in Thailand for centuries. It just gives you this nice buzz. You know, if you get the dosage right, you're not feeling impaired in any way. You just feel a little more relaxed. And it goes well with a nice glass of wine sometimes. That's personal preference. Super Speciosa has only one ingredient, pure kratom leaf. Now, that's not true about some kratom brands where they do try to mix it with other things. And all of Super Speciosa's batches come with certified lab reports, so you know exactly what you're getting. I don't know, like, did you pour over the lab report?
I was going to say, you know exactly what you're getting if you know how to read a lab report. No, I did not. I did not read the lab report. I trust.
But I will say they are the only one that come with a lab report, however useful that might be. And, we just got a nice package with powder, capsules, tablets, and teas. Those Super Speciosa offers all of those. And like I said, I'm just trying tea for the first time, and I'm liking it.
That's awesome. I've only ever done the capsules, but I will say this, like kratom gives you a nice feeling, and there are different kinds of kratom. There's different colors of kratom, which I guess are different stages of the plant.
You're racist if you only do the white kratom.
That's right. You should.
I think.
All kratums matter is what you're saying. The way I treat it is like, look, this is not an FDA medicine or anything like that. This is an herbal supplement. I've treated it much like I drink mate, which is an Argentinian tea that gives me like energy. Although it's caffeine, it feels a little different than coffee. And this, I treat it like that. But honestly, it works as a painkiller. And I've had issues throughout the past few years with some pain from like just chronically sitting at my desk. And kratom works. I mean, so it feels good.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to try kratom, if you haven't tried it, Super Speciosa is a great place to go. For one reason, they give you 100% satisfaction or your money back guaranteed. So if you order from them and you try it and you don't like it for any reason, you'll get all your money back. But on top of that, if you try Super Speciosa Kratom now, you'll get 20% off as a listener of our podcast. All you have to do is go to getsuperleaf.com/VBW and you'll get that 20% off with the promo code VBW. That's getsuperleaf.com/VBW and use promo code VBW for 20% off. Our thanks to Super Speciosa for sponsoring this episode of Very Bad Wizards.
Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is the time where we like to thank all the listeners and all the people who get in touch with us and interact with us in all the different ways that you do. You know, we're here. We were just at the Harmony Hotel in Nosara, Costa Rica, which was a really nice example of people who listened and appreciated our podcast, hooking us up with something pretty special. But a lot of the guests there that attended our event, they weren't actually fans of the podcast, in that.
Well, you make it sound like they were like haters of the podcast.
No.
It's just they didn't know what the podcast was.
They just didn't know about the podcast.
I'm not a fan of Tamler Summers.
We're not fans. Yeah. Not a fan, actually. No. They just didn't know about it. And it's funny, like, I have gotten so used to, when I'm with you, just kind of interacting with people who get our jokes. And if I call you a Kantian or an anti-Semite or something like that, they'll get it, you know? So I like, it was weird adjusting back to, oh wait, these people don't know who we are. And
right.
So
they didn't get our inside jokes.
Yeah, they're not going to get our inside jokes, but it also made me appreciate all the more the community of people who, for whatever reason, have been with us long enough to get our references and just the internal humor to the podcast.
Even when we even forget where the original joke came from. I think you texted me once, like, why do I call you a Kantian again?
Exactly. I know why I call you an anti-Semite, because you hate Jews.
Right.
But...
Yeah. That one's obvious.
The Kantian one, I'm not sure what the origin story of that is, but I think a listener enlightened me at some point.
Also, calling me an anti-Semite, I gotta say, a little more risky in a novel audience than calling me a Kantian.
Wait, did I? I don't think I did.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, okay, good. In any case, if we really appreciate everybody, whether you're new to the show or old to the show, interacting with us. If you would like to do that, you can email us, verybadwizards@gmail.com. You can tweet at us, at Tamler, at Peas, at verybadwizards. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and you can join the lively community on Reddit, on the Very Bad Wizards subreddit. You know, our last episode on panpsychism, one of our most heavily commented on Reddit episodes, which I
haven't even been on Reddit. What was the reaction?
I mean, I didn't go through all of it because we were away in, Costa Rica, but I just saw that it had like 100 and something comments, and I think most of them are on like the actual topic, panpsychism and whether it is just terminological. I think some people disagreed with our take that there wasn't much actual substance to the view. It was just more a different way of describing the same issues that the materialists describe, but and I looked at it more early on, and I thought there was an interesting case to be made that we were a little bit or maybe overly dismissive of some of that stuff. So
yeah, well, I knew we were going to get people to write about consciousness. People care about consciousness more than most topics in philosophy. If you want to support us in more ways than just commenting on Reddit, more tangible ways, you can do so by going to our Very Bad Wizards support page, verybadwizards.com, and just click on the support tab. There you'll see the various ways in which you can support us. You can give us a one-time or recurring donation via PayPal. You can buy some swag. You can buy t-shirts, hoodies, mugs. Finally, you can become one of our beloved Patreon supporters. If you do, you'll get a few perks. So at $1 and up, you'll get all ad-free episodes, and you'll get compilations of my beats when I put them out. At $2 and up, you'll get bonus segments. We should have some coming up. I think we're going to do one soon, finally, on the anime Millennium Actress. At $5 and up, you get to vote on an episode topic. You get access to our 5-part series on the Brothers Karamazov. You get access to my intro psych lecture videos and a couple of Tamler's lectures on Plato's Symposium. And finally, at $10 and up, you get to ask us anything. So not only do you get the video and audio versions of the Ask Us Anything, you get to ask us questions. And up until now, I'll keep saying it until it's not true, we've answered every single question that we've been asked.
And then the next one that we're about to release, probably by the time this goes up, is going to be live. It's the only one we've recorded live they were all live, but we've recorded them in person. We were face to face. We were in the bungalow that Dave was staying in, the courtyard of that in Costa Rica, and we have a special guest editor, Eliza Summers. So
that's right. She's tasked with making our video a little more interesting.
Hopefully, yeah. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to make any promises. But she knows what she's doing.
Yes, she does. And I forgot to mention that at $2 and up, you also get the Ask Us Anything segments just a month later. So there's a little lag. You'll get the audio. So yeah, thank you to everybody for your support. We very much appreciate it.
All right, let's get to our main topic for today. And this is the first in what probably will be a 2-part discussion of Franz Kafka's The Trial, a book that was written in 1915, is that right? Published in 1925, a year after Kafka's death.
Right. Is it the case that most of Kafka's stuff was published after his death?
I think he published some stories, but he did not publish any of his novels. He wrote 3 novels, The Castle, The Trial, which we're going to discuss, and America with a K, which I don't know that much about, but I think that one was more unfinished than the other ones. The Castle is actually pretty well fleshed out. It just sort of stops. The Trial has an ending. That you presume is the ending that Franz Kafka intended, but my memory of The Castle is that although it's very well laid out, it just kind of stops.
Yeah, and even with The Trial, there were editorial decisions that had to be made about how it should be structured, and it was, turns out, in different notebooks. He had written chapters in different notebooks, and it was combined to make the final novel after his death. But
my point is just that was probably the end. There's clearly a lot of missing. The chapter is called The End. I assume because the editor took some liberties, apparently putting fragments together, sometimes taking them out, but yeah, it seems like there's no other place for that story to go. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read The Trial, than with Joseph K's death. Yeah. So do you want to talk about why we have The Trial, this very famous novel, to even talk about and to read and to discuss forever?
Yeah, I'm going to read. So the version of The Trial that we both read, because there are a few different translations, just so you know, it's translated by Breon Mitchell. And the opening of the publisher's notes, it opens with this quote: "Dearest Max, my last request, everything I leave behind me in the way of diaries, manuscripts, letters, my own and others, sketches, and so on, is to be burned unread. Yours, Franz Kafka." He had written that to his friend, Max Brod, who then published it a year later.
Yeah. Now, so the backstory, at least as Brod tells it, is that he didn't think Kafka really wanted him to burn them, because if he did, he wouldn't have asked Max Brod. Because he knew that Max Brod would publish his works, and Max Brod says he knew that because I told him that straight up.
Right.
But that is still the final request. And I assume a Kantian like you just thinks that we should not be reading this book. Nobody should be like endlessly interpreting in it and being inspired by it. And
It's not the Kantian in me. It's more like the loyal person, the person with honor who has bonds and commitments that death cannot tear apart.
well, I mean, the
Utilitarian
honorable,
like you.
just that a simple-minded utilitarian. like morality is an algorithm. No, I think it's actually an open question, which is the more honorable choice here, because I think Max Brod clearly recognized its greatness. This is a novel that is probably the thing he's most well known for, Franz Kafka, and it has brought, and just publishing all of this stuff that he didn't publish has brought Kafka a level of honor and fame that certainly nobody would even know who he is.
Right. But Kafka doesn't know that.
No.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, depending on what the afterlife situation is, and maybe his ghost knows.
To me, it really does turn on whether there is truth to Brod's assertion that he knew that Kafka knew that he would be somebody to disregard. And I can see being an insecure artist who is so unsure that you kind of leave it to a friend who might have an eye as to whether or not this stuff is good or not, but you don't really want to show it to them while you're alive. Because he could, well, I don't know the circumstance of Kafka's death. I know he was young, but it's
Tuberculosis.
He could have burned it himself.
Right.
And apparently he did burn some of his own stuff.
I didn't know that. Really.
Yeah, that's what I read. I could be wrong. And so it does leave the question of Kafka's intentions open a little bit. And you do want to sometimes say, look, your insecurity as an artist should not be what dictates whether the world should see your art.
Yeah, given, and this is one of those, I don't know, like Gauguin-like questions too, because I think just its undeniable greatness justifies, even if it had been a kind of promise that he had made or something like that, it would justify breaking it just because it's so great. But as I think you pointed out when we were having dinner the other night, he didn't necessarily know it was going to be a phenomenon.
No.
Max Brod. I mean, he might have suspected it, but you just don't know. You can't tell. And especially something like this, which is really its own style of novel. There's really there's a reason why the term, it's a cliche, but Kafka-esque exists, and it's because he invented a kind of style that is so distinctive. It's just him. Given that it's this unique vision, he couldn't have known that it was great. I'm sure he thought it was.
Right.
But
I think the decision needs to be made case by case. There are artists who die and have left a whole bunch of earlier work. I only know music, but like Jay Dilla left just a storage house full of old beat tapes. And there is actually debate as to whether or not he thought they were good enough to be released or whether he was just a pack rat. And so there's been some accusations that people are just trying to make money off of his unreleased work. That would be the ugliest thing. Like if Max Brod was just like, I can make some money publishing this. And
I don't think that's the case, but I don't know.
Who knows? But in a straight up utilitarian way, I don't mind. Like, I'm glad it was published. I don't know if I told you
just
not,
an aesthetic like vision of morality too. Like you want greatness, great works to exist and to be poured over. And
yeah. Who knows what we've lost by people honoring wishes of their dead friends?
Well, I'll just tell you right now that I probably won't burn any of your beats, even if you ask me, because I'll know that you don't really want me to.
You won't be able to find them, because it'll require you getting into a computer and navigating folders.
I do some Mr. Robot shit.
Didn't that happen with Atticus Finch, the woman who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird?
Oh, Harper Lee.
Yeah, Harper Lee. There was a posthumous book published to not great reviews.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. That could have been, and she had left this just undeniable classic that, like until recently, everybody in high school read.
Right.
But so apparently, looking up Prince, 8,000 songs.
Jesus Christ.
8,000. These people are workaholics. Like Kafka apparently was too. He was just incessantly writing, incessantly. What I'm sort of curious about with the trial, given that there's 10 years between his death and him writing it, is what happened there? He just was
Right. That seems like a pretty decent indicator that he had no interest in, like he hadn't even collected them together.
Yeah. In fact, although there were chapters that were pretty clearly the same chapter, they weren't numbered. And so there were editorial decisions just about what order of the chapters should be.
As you point out, the end has to be the end because there's nothing to indicate that like his ghost came back. But the other ones, yeah.
So what did you think of it overall?
I mean, it's an amazing book. Like, I think I have very little memory of reading it. I'm pretty sure I read it in college, but I love it. I loved it. I mean, it's a particular kind of absurdity that just feeds my soul. It scratches some kind of itch. It feels like life feels in a way that obviously, literally can't be, but it feels like what it feels like to live.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. I think it's a total masterpiece, and actually reads. And if you haven't read it, listeners, you should absolutely read it. It's not very long, and it, in spite of all the things we were just talking about, I think it's a pretty cohesive novel that has, a clear arc of Joseph K. and sort of his mindset, his mentality, where he is emotionally about all of it, and it's really funny. Like it is, and especially I would say the first half. But actually, I mean, it stays funny almost until pretty much until the last couple of chapters, where it turns somber, and a lot of the just absurdist humor of it is lacking. Even though you still have the absurdity in the cathedral chapter, it's not played for laughs. I think that,
shit starts getting real. A lot of the descriptions in the scenes are as absurd as they are before, but you can tell things are culminating.
The characters in the earlier chapters, they're all so completely sure of themselves in ways that are totally unhelpful to Joseph K. And that a lot of the comedy just comes from their interactions with him. But the priest in the last chapter isn't like that at all.
Right.
And in fact, it seems like he probably is trying to help Joseph K. To some extent, although we could talk about that when we get there.
To tie it to something we've talked about before, I'm still amazed that Gogol's The Nose was written so early, because there is a lot of that same flavor. Somebody wakes up to an absurd circumstance. You see that in Metamorphosis, obviously, trial.
Yeah. So that's a good comparison. I would say that there's a different kind of absurdity to me in that the Kafka absurdity is so dreamlike. It's just all dream logic, but like you said, it speaks to something truly real. So even though you can't, we'll talk about all the fantastical elements of it, none of that, I think it's hard to take literally, and it really does feel like a dream. Like it feels like my dreams, but it's always hitting on something like, okay, I know what I feel this emotion when I'm trying to deal with customer service, for an airline or something like that. Right. Whereas The Nose, like I didn't feel that.
Yeah, but the Nose, and I'm pretty sure we talked about this during the episode, is also dreamlike in its sort of in this particular way, which is he wakes up and he doesn't know where his nose is, and that's something that if it happened in real life, you'd be like, what the motherfuck? And he's like, I wonder where my nose is. Like, that's the kind of dream logic that is sort of common.
But it's just like, I don't have that kind of dream,
right.
Although I could see having it. Anyway, we're talking about everything but the actual trial.
Yeah. It's my dreams aren't that I lose my nose, but I do lose some things.
I lost my sunglasses.
Throughout all of the things that happen to Joseph K., the protagonist, they're more directly relevant to something that you could see happening in real life. Like overall, there's still this absurdity. Like for one, why doesn't he do a little more work to find out what he's accused of? Like it seems like that's sort of,
I think he does try to do that. It's just clear. He has no access to anybody who's aware of what he's accused of.
But he barely does. And he'll proclaim his innocence, which we can get into. But he'll proclaim his innocence, and I don't think that he knows what he's proclaiming his innocence about.
Right.
Right.
That's sounds like something a guilty person.
Yeah, it is almost as if he knows he's probably guilty of something, but since they won't tell him what he's being accused of, he doesn't want to give it up.
Yeah, or he's guilty of something, but probably not the thing they think he's guilty of.
Yeah,
so in
right.
that sense, he's innocent.
That's right.
Before we launch into it, and we want to take our time with this, and we'll probably go through it in some kind of order, but I wanted to get thoughts about how to approach interpreting a novel like The Trial. So I was thinking about this, and then I looked up a couple of things. Walter Benjamin claimed that Kafka took all conceivable precautions against the interpretation of his writings, and I think part of that was like
burning some of them.
Burning them, but then also I think like that having that parable, which we'll talk about at length at the end, the parable of the law that the priest tells Joseph K. is also a parable about interpretation. And it seems like there is a family of interpretation that really tries to map on every element of the plot and text to something like, so I came across something that says the law or the judge is like the superego, and the superego is judging, and Joseph K. represents the ego, and also at times the subconscious. Something like that just doesn't seem I don't know, like that seems reductive to me in a way that this book is telling you like loud and clear not to do.
Yeah. It's interesting because there is a temptation when you read it to find allegory. And I guess that thing that you just read where they claim that he did everything to resist interpretation doesn't seem right. It just seems as if Kafka, but it seems like he knew that you could view these things in any number of ways. And there doesn't seem to be, to me, an attempt at making it so thematic or so allegorical that we would be able to like win the argument about what this is really about.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be decoded, although some people disagree. That's my feeling, is it's not supposed to be decoded in a way where this is the definitive interpretation of the trial. It's meant to be open.
Yeah, and so here's what I'm always curious about, because this isn't the kind of art I've ever done, and I'm not barely an artist at anything, but it wouldn't bother me, say, to know that Kafka had a very clear interpretation in mind, and then he produced this, so long as I never hear it, as long as I never this is one of the things that I dislike about artists when they talk about their work, is that they remove my interpretations just by giving their own, because then it seems authoritative and it seems like maybe I'm a sucker for having read into it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they do say that, like, they're like, I don't know, if everyone's overthinking this, it's really just a story about a guy who loves the girl and then dies trying to save her or something like that. Right. It's like, no, it's not. I don't believe you that that's what you think about it. And you're psyched that everybody is trying to figure out what you're up to.
Yeah.
And, because I think interpretation is a creative act with a lot of works. And that's one of my favorite things about the trial, is you have to be creative in trying to grapple with it. And I bet if we read this again in 2 years and do another episode about it, we'll probably have completely different ways of understanding it.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. I don't remember what episode, how at different stages in life you might read something interpreted differently. Yeah. Like it hits different. He could have written it in a straightforward way. And I think the temptation there would have been, for me, more to interpret it as a straight up allegory of something. But with those weird, fantastical, absurdist elements, I feel like he's fucking with me in a good way, making me look at this in a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, a multiplicity of, like, even as you're reading it, it's you get this multiplicity of like emotions, some of which I don't even think we're aware of. One thing this book does that I was thinking about it. Not a lot of novels do. This probably should, and a lot of that is my fault. But I get, as I'm reading this, these images in my head almost instantly, and it feels really vivid. And I feel like I have the emotions of it. Even if I don't fully understand what's going on, like the court scene in the beginning, I was like, wait, where is this? Who's there? What's going on? Yeah. Like, I still picture it. Like, he's constantly bringing an images, or the painter's little tiny room with the door behind his bed. And I just like, that's so... it's so evocative, but it's literally, it also has a kind of Schrodinger's cat quality to it where, you know, you see it like this, but then you also see it like this, and you don't see them that way at the same time. But that's like, I think interpretively it's like that too, is that it has these kind of multiple interpretations, fruitful interpretations going on at the same time.
Yeah, there is that evocative nature is something I definitely felt like. In it's sort of what I was trying to allude to is reading this feels like you're living out something in your life, even though it has nothing to do literally with anything you've experienced. Man, it's a talent to make the reader feel something when what they're describing is some like little attic room from the early 1900s in what was Czechoslovakia or whatever, you know, like that's.
But I can smell the room,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like, and when the air is stifling as it often is, like, I feel like I'm like not breathing as well. I'm not sure what other novelists, even Dostoevsky, I loved Dostoevsky, but I don't, for some of the scenes, I don't really have a great sense of like the space, you know, and the environment. And even though all of this is dreamlike and, you know, sometimes just impossible, often impossible, it still just gives me these really vivid and visceral kinds of pictures in my head. Today's episode is sponsored, as usual, by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Dave, we were just asked by a listener, how do you find the best therapist? I mean, what's the way of going about it? How do you, you know, because a lot of times you can be in a therapeutic relationship and it just doesn't go anywhere. And it's like, okay, where do I turn next? And I remember you answered something that's relevant to this spot.
Yeah, you know, in a small town like Ithaca, it's kind of easy to feel frustrated because if you go to a therapist and they don't work out, there's just not that many therapists around. And the truth is, with something like BetterHelp, we have all of these options that we never had before. So, you know, give your therapist a good chance to like build a relationship. But if it doesn't work, there's hundreds of other therapists that you can choose from. So whatever it is that you're feeling, I think a solution like BetterHelp might work.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that physical symptoms like headaches, teeth grinding, and even digestive issues can be indicators of stress. And let's not forget about doom scrolling, sleeping too little, sleeping too much, undereating, and overeating. I think I do all of...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that perfectly describes me.
I do all of those except undereating and sleeping too much. I definitely teeth grind, though.
Yeah, me too.
Stress can show up in all sorts of ways. I mean, we just had just an unbelievable time in Costa Rica, but because of that, a lot of things that should have been on the front burner got pushed to the back burner. And right now, oh my God, I am grinding. And so here's a reminder to take care of yourself. Maybe do less and maybe try some therapy. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. And it's much more affordable than in-person therapy, so you can try a bunch of people and find the one that you like. So just give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Very Bad Wizards listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/VBW. So you just go to BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/VBW to get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode.
Yeah. So can we talk broadly about just the experience that Joseph K. is going through? So he's arrested, but not told why he's arrested. And the book is him basically trying to deal with the fact that he's been accused of something of which he knows not what. And this is what really gets me, like what I really feel. There's always something just out of reach. There's some knowledge, or there's some procedure, or there's some person who he's supposed to be talking to, but that he can't quite get a clear answer. And he's working hard, it seems, to do all of the right things to the point that his his normal job as a chief officer at the bank starts suffering because all he can think about is this trial. When they arrest him, though, they do tell him, you're not going to prison or anything. He's just been arrested, and he just has to sort of wait out like what's going to happen. There's no timeline. There's no, like, he's summoned once to court, but it's that feeling of almost knowing, of like always being just shy of the inside info that you might need. That is so powerful to me.
Yeah, no, that's and very dreamlike. That's that kind of anxiety dream of the thing that you want either to know or to happen is just out of reach.
Yeah.
And if you could just, but now you can't get your pants on properly.
Right,
You can't,
exactly.
and that's and then by the time you get your pants on, it's gone. But there's some new thing. And
Right.
I mean, so he's woken up in the morning, told he's arrested by people who say they have no idea what the charge is. It's not clear that anybody who he comes into contact with knows what he's accused of. There's just this idea that he has been accused, and that in most cases, when people are accused, they are convicted and found guilty. But he never really finds out. And maybe this is, you alluded to this earlier, he gives up even trying to find out what it is he's accused of early on, because I think there are, unlike the things that you're talking about, there are so many barriers, it seems, to finding out what he's accused of, that just seems too pie in the sky for him. He starts to focus more on immediate tasks over the course of it.
And even, we even get a sense that he is, the first task that he needs is to submit a petition. A petition for what? Who knows?
Right, exactly.
Right? It's unclear. But he is working on it.
Yeah, he's working on a petition. He has a lawyer that he may or may not have submitted a petition on his behalf. But again, it's not clear what the petitions do. And often people will say, "Oh yeah, petitions don't do anything anyway," even though he had pinned all his hopes on this petition, not knowing what it is. Yeah, and what's very funny about the book is two things, I think. First, his just attitude towards everything, which I would say starts out being kind of haughty and indignant and kind of arrogant and thinking like he's toying with the people that are arresting him, and then slowly getting all his self-confidence and that kind of righteous indignation kind of drained out of him. And even though, and it's not like he'll never say something along those lines, but he just doesn't have the heart to really pursue it anymore.
Yeah.
And over the course of the novel, there's a bunch of people who offer help.
Well, that's, the other part that I was going to say is that not only is his information hard to come by, random ass people seem to know about it and seem to know more than he does. And so like the desperation that I could feel that you might have if somebody, for instance, one of the merchants that he does business with at his bank tells him that he's heard about his, about his trial. One of the things that he's worried about is like the president and vice president of the bank knowing that he's been arrested. So he's not really saying anything about it, even though at his arrest, 3 bank employees.
Right.
And this merchant just basically makes it known that he knows that he's been arrested. And he's like, how did you know? And it's my
business.
Yeah. And it's also not just that other people know, it's that other like seemingly less important people than him know.
Yeah.
Right. Like just random ass like.
And not only does he know that, but he knows a guy who can help him if he wants the help, but it's also somebody that might hurt him at his job. And so, so there's a series of men that offer help, but turn out to be just like, further sources of frustration and agony and just, alienation from his own trial. And then there are women that he comes across. And this is another dreamlike element of it. There's all of a sudden he'll be in the room and there'll be a woman, or he'll be in the court and there'll be a woman, and the woman will already, she's kind of throwing herself at him, and he feels like he loves her, but that never gets consummated, and often ends in rage and jealousy.
Right.
I mean, sort of. More like just irritation and pique.
It's very weird. Like he has these like mini affairs with women who he's never met, but he encounters in his capacity as a defendant. Yeah. And there's even a conversation where somebody tries to make it clear why this is happening to him. That is why he's having women kind of throw themselves at him, and they're like, well, there's something about being independent that makes you hotter.
Yeah. Right. So to all the single men out there,
Get arrested.
get arrested in a bewildering way. And then ultimately people stop helping him. And in fact, the Italian that he meets in the beginning of the last chapter turns out is somebody who is taking him to, or at least enabling his ultimate conviction. And
Is he like, yeah.
is he? I don't know. Yeah. Well, why didn't he show up at the cathedral?
Yeah, I guess so. Like he could have been, was the president in on it? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It is funny, and this is another absurdist element, that he thought the president and vice president wouldn't know. And for all intents and purposes, it doesn't seem like they do know.
Or
But
they
given
don't
that
care,
like
yeah.
random people seem to know about it, almost nobody doesn't know about it in the novel.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much that I want to talk about. Maybe we should start going through it. Here, I just want to say one thing. One of the aspects of this that is, again, so frustrating is that there seems to be an entire legal system that is shadow. Like it's not the regular courts and trials. It's not a public thing. The number of people who know about it and who have interacted with it, it seems astounding. It seems like he's never heard about it. He's a 30-year-old man and he's never heard about it until he gets arrested.
Yeah.
But there are entire groups of people whose whole life is devotion to this legal system.
Right.
And like there are courts in like the slums, like,
In attics in the
attics.
slums. And then there are this kind of shadowy higher courts.
Yeah.
But it's not totally clear, like, who knows them, if anybody knows them. They seem to issue final verdicts, but there's no records of their final verdict, and no like justification. There's no legal. The law is this opaque bureaucracy, and yet it has just so many people, ordinary people, are like intimately connected. Like the judges just walk over the painter's head every morning.
Yeah.
So they're both like totally inaccessible, but also like in the walls.
Exactly. And he's only now becoming aware that this whole other world exists, and he's sort of bewildered by it. And then there are these, like you say, supposed higher courts. So every official that he interacts with, even the lawyers and the judges, turns out the lawyer is not really the high lawyer, like he's the petty lawyer. And it turns out like even the judges who have these portraits painted of them, everybody knows they're actually the lower judges.
Right.
And so there is this whole shadow high court, but I don't think we ever see once like an actual person who is part of the higher secret group. It really feels like a secret society is being.
Yeah, it seems like a secret society, or if you take it in another direction, like a deities, like gods.
Exactly.
Or
There's a
just
strict
God.
hierarchy, like there's demigods and
That's, I think, definitely, it's hard to ignore that possibility if you're coming up with interpretations. So, you want to go through it?
Yeah.
So he's woken up in the morning on his 30th birthday.
Remember how long ago that was? Your 30th birthday.
Just a little tiny bit longer than it was for you. You want to read the opening sentence?
Sure,
'Cause it's one of the more famous opening sentences.
Right. And as we said, there are different translations. But someone must have slandered Joseph K. For one morning, without having done anything wrong, he was arrested. What a great way to start.
And he knows something's up because he doesn't get breakfast.
Yeah.
And instead, there are these two officers who are telling him that he's under arrest. And when he asks for breakfast, they all kind of laugh. And this is where, like, this is the first, like, dreamlike element for me, is like he has to be like jumping out of bed and pulling up his trousers while he's trying to figure out what's going on, and that takes a while, and he's acting, this is the first part, he's acting pretty arrogant about
he's
everything
indignant, he's like, who are you? How dare you? I'll wait till Frog Robach hears about this.
Exactly. Because they're interrogating him or inspecting him not in his own room, but in the room of somebody else who's staying at this lodging house.
Right. Which is always a funny old-timey thing. Like, did lots of people live in this way? Like, there's just one landlady and they all Everybody lives in a different room, and the landlady cooks them breakfast or whatever.
Yeah, I think so. For single people.
I kind of like that.
And he honestly doesn't know if it's a joke.
Yeah.
So
He hypothesizes that it is.
and then he has to question, should I play along with the joke or
Yeah.
should I get really mad and kind of force them? I don't want to seem like I have no sense of humor.
Exactly. Yeah, am I being punked? And because it's his 30th birthday, he thinks, oh, maybe this is what they're doing for like my birthday. Like maybe I should laugh along for a bit.
Another dreamlike element is when he's looking for his ID papers, which he thinks, oh, well, I'll just give them my ID and that'll settle that. But all he can find is his bicycle license.
I missed that, I think. Oh, here, my identification. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'd say the first real indication that you have to take seriously some possibility that he's guilty is that he's like, I can't believe they just left me in my room when I could so easily kill myself.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, why would you do that? And he does say, well, that would be so irrational that even if I wanted to kill myself,
Right.
I wouldn't do it. But
no,
that's the
exactly,
first thing
exactly,
that
yeah.
makes you think, wait a minute, what is going on?
Right.
here?
And whenever he does try to ask the question of the people brought to arrest him, he's just told very matter-of-factly, that's not our job. Our only job is to arrest you. We don't know anything. Early on, they talk about the law. This is the law that is apparently condemning him. The law as an institution, as a set of guidelines, as a society.
Yeah.
The law is capitalized. And so there's always an appeal to the law. That's the authority that is, but they don't know.
Right. And they're like, it's the law.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly this is something real and serious, but we have no idea what it is.
Right. And then this is a point where one of the guards says, well, so you say you're innocent. Do you know the law? And he's like, no, I don't know the law. He's like, see, he claims he's innocent, but he doesn't even know the law. But they also don't know the law. Like,
So there is a little bit of a cat and mouse, but not much of one. And in the end, they just let him go.
yeah. And he's sort of surprised. He's like, all right, I'm under arrest. Take me away. And they're like, oh no, you just got to go to work. He's like, what? Yeah, just go to work. Don't worry. We'll find you.
Yeah.
Here's what I wanted to ask you, because this is also part of what I can relate to is a microcosm. If somebody very close to you, say your wife, said, Tamler, I know what you did. You know, and I know that you're guilty of something. My mind would start racing through all sorts of things that I have done or that I possibly could have done or that might be misinterpreted or that.
Totally.
So it's a relatable feeling that you might not feel so confident in your insistence that you're innocent. And his insistence is even he knows he's just, I think, fronting. Like he's putting up a front.
Right. But at the same time, I think he has no clue. It's not like he killed the person or something like that. And he's just like, I mean, I suppose you could think that. Maybe we should talk just briefly from the start. Like, what do you think on the question of his guilt? Is he guilty? Is he guilty in a way that any of us isn't guilty?
Right. I thought at times in the book that his behavior might be characteristic of somebody who might have done something. Say like a small embezzlement or something that he feels like there might be something on him. But throughout I did get more of a feeling that like he's guilty in as much as we're all guilty.
Yeah. And I think the question of his guilt probably isn't of a crime. It's more, this kind of vague, well, we are guilty. And I don't know what exactly it is about him, but he can be pretty accusatory and he can jump to conclusions and make judgments about other people in a way, that's being done to him. And so maybe there's something about his judgmentalness. Maybe there's something about his attitude towards women. He clearly, I think the dreamy aspects of this really focus on the sexual. And so I think like he feels guilty sexually in in some deep ways.
Okay. So they tell him, you're free to go work. And he says, how can I go to the bank if I'm under arrest? Oh, I see, said the inspector who was already at the door. You've misunderstood me. You're under arrest, certainly, but that's not meant to keep you from carrying on your profession, nor are you to be hindered in the course of your ordinary life. Then being under arrest isn't so bad, said Kay, approaching the inspector. I never said it was, he replied.
Right. Well, you're the one who seems to be all huffy and puffy about this.
Yeah. So, and this starts off what I find is greatly anxiety inducing, which is, from this point on, it's clear that he's not in any control over the legal proceedings. He doesn't, he is told basically you'll expect something, who knows what. It might be years. Like throughout the book, he learns that some people have been sort of their trial, quote unquote, has gone on for years. Sometimes it's short. No, it's unclear what happens when you're sentenced. Yeah. Everything is up in the air. And that's really what's so existential to me about this.
Yeah.
Nothing is promised. You never know. Like it might come to a swift end in a year. It might in 10 years, or
you might have cancer right now and you don't know it.
Exactly.
You know, like anything. I think it is like having this kind of illness that you're vaguely aware of, but you're not totally sure of what the actual nature of the illness is. And it might be fine or it might kill you.
Exactly.
And you don't know. You just don't know. I mean, that's another kind of mapping interpretation that it represents Kafka's tuberculosis or something like that. Yeah. But maybe not so fruitful either.
No, you've unlocked it. That's it.
That's
the whole thing.
Sorry. Let's wrap this up.
That's why he had trouble breathing in those little attic rooms.
Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
Okay, so then he has to have a discussion, right? This is now moving on to chapter 2 with his landlady, and another lodger named Frau Burstner. Sorry for my German. Fräulein Burstner,
whose room he was interrogated in, and they had kind of messed up the picture orders of her pictures.
Yeah, and
so he feels the need, even though it's late at night, it's like 11:30 at night. He feels the need to apologize to her.
So weird, right? Like I guess he's into her a little bit. But we also learned something about him, that he has a girlfriend,
Elsa, which
we just never hear about again.
Well, we hear about her, but we don't.
Right.
He kind of almost uses her to get over the hurt when one of the kind of slutty nurses ends up, like also liking or also liking somebody else.
Yeah, it also read like I had a Canadian girlfriend over the summer or whatever. Like, really, is there an Elsa?
Yeah, no, totally. Right. He certainly talks about her, but nobody else refers to. Yeah, does he have an Elsa? Is a very good question, actually. So I like the scene with the landlady. This is another kind of element that the book has, which is he always feels like he can get something from someone emotionally. And so just like he always thinks he can find out about the trial, he also thinks he'll be able to have some sort of emotional connection that will be helpful for his mindset. And also that's out of reach. So at first he really wants the landlady to believe in his innocence.
Yeah.
And she does, but then immediately just gets deflated as like, oh, this is meaningless to have that, have her believe in my innocence is so worthless. And so like, he doesn't get the kind of emotional fulfillment, I guess.
Or satisfaction.
That he craved and that he thought he might get. And so he just goes on to the next person, which I think is Fräulein Burstner. But
here's what I was going to ask you. They have a little bit of a conversation about Fräulein Burstner. And because it's late at night and she's not there yet, right? And so there's some allusion made about how single women shouldn't be out so late at night. And for the landlady makes some allusion to like, yes, this is bad behavior. And then he gets mad and says, no, I didn't mean it that way.
He's also kind of getting people into trouble. And Fräulein Burstner, and what's funny is he kind of protests her innocence, but then when she shuns his advances, he kind of says like, well, why are you home so late?
Yeah.
So he immediately accuses her in just the way that he was so mad that the landlady was.
Yeah, he's like super incel-y with her. Like she makes it very clear that she wants him to leave his apartment or her room, right?
Yeah.
And he's also super into it. He's like, okay, it is true that they were in her room for the initial part of the hearing when he got arrested. And it is true that some of her photographs were moved out of place. But the landlady had said, look, We fixed everything. Everything's clean. But he feels this insistence. And when he's in her apartment, he wants to actually act it out.
Yeah,
It's
right.
so weird. He's like getting energized. Like, okay, let me move your nightstand to show you how it was here.
Oh, I've forgotten the inspector. Like, who's going to play the inspector? Yeah. And she's, she's good humored about it, but also tired. She's clearly come back from she's had a night out and she's tired and she wants to go to bed, but she's humoring him. And then it does get a little rapey after that. I mean, there's no sex, but he kind of forcibly kisses her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like on her neck. It says that he kissed her on the neck, right at her throat, and left his lips there for a long time. And then he falls asleep like a baby very quickly, which was weird given...
Before falling asleep, he reflected briefly on his conduct. He was pleased with it, but was surprised he didn't feel even more pleased. He was seriously concerned on Fräulein Burstner's behalf because of the cap. So then he gets... he hears that his inquiries...
Yeah, he gets a telephone call.
Yeah. He just gets a telephone call that says it's going to take place the following Sunday, and that Sundays is when it's going to take place. So then he kind of gets dressed up, right, for it, but nobody tells him where it is.
Yeah, that's another weird dreamlike thing. Like he just has to show up. They don't, I don't even know if he knows at what time.
Yeah, they just tell him it's going to take place on Sunday, and that's it. And yet he walks around. I guess he has some sense of where the court would be. And then, this is all just very surreal at this point. How do you picture the actual area of the court? It does
the outside or the
just it's a lot. Yeah, the outside first.
Yeah, I was picturing it as like the poor part of an old city with a lot of people and tenement housing kind of.
With the courtyards, and so maybe almost like apartment buildings with a courtyard surrounding a courtyard, because there does seem like there's a courtyard in it, a lot of stairs that you can go up to get to different rooms and apartments.
Yeah, I admit I had trouble. I had trouble following the description of some of these places, and I didn't know whether that was intentional or whether I'm just spatially badly, I can't.
Well, no, because I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah.
The lot, like I say, I get a picture of it, and I bet we might have different pictures, and probably they're equally well suited to the text. But I think there's key details left out, and I think there's kind of logically impossible details.
And there are changes.
And there are changes constantly.
Yeah.
So here's just a sample. Kay turned to the stairs to find the room for the inquiry, and he has no idea what room it is, or even if he's in the right place, but then paused as he saw 3 different staircases in the courtyard, in addition to the first one. Moreover, a small passage at the other end of the courtyard seemed to lead to a second courtyard. He was annoyed that they hadn't described the location of the room more precisely. He was certainly being treated with a strange carelessness or indifference, a point he intended to make loud and clearly.
Yeah.
Then he went up the first set of stairs. After all, his mind playing with the memory of the remark the guard Wilhelm had made that the court was attracted by guilt, from which it actually followed that the room for the inquiry would have to be located off whatever stairway Kay chanced to choose.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So is he just saying he's guilty?
So I don't know, but he does just get to the right building. He goes up the right staircase, and he even creates this excuse I feel weird and out of place trying to find a court here, so I'm just going to ask if there is a painter, a house painter, carpenter. Yeah. And so he just goes around asking whether or not this carpenter lives there, and finally one of the people just oh yeah, come in, and then all of a sudden court.
And then it's a court proceedings, which again, how do you picture this? It's I guess indoors somewhere, but there's a lot of people there.
A ton of people. It seems like there are almost bleachers, because this is the passage that really, there's a gallery of people. Only the people in the gallery continued making comments. They seemed, as far as one could tell, in the semi-darkness, haze, and dust overhead. Also very dreamy to me. In some of my bad dreams, it's hard for me. It's kind of dusk and I can't really see.
Yeah.
They seemed to be dressed more shabbily than those below, so they're in the nosebleeds. Some of them had brought along cushions that they placed between their heads and the roof of the hall so as to not rub themselves raw. So like they're in like the nosebleeds, but the roof is like pushing right up against their head, and
Yeah.
so they need cushion.
It
Why are
seems
they
like
there?
they live in this general area.
Yeah.
When he's looking through, like he's constantly looking through doors to find his proceedings, and he'll just find somebody like holding a baby and making dinner, or
Right.
you know, like
Right.
cleaning or
washing,
whatever. Yeah,
washing clothes.
it's I read it as they kind of live there, either as a part of the court or just like there's no real distinction between the court and these people and their jobs.
Right. There is, I guess the reason I was picturing tenements is because of this passage. But Julius Strasse, which where it was supposedly located, so I guess they gave him the name of a street, and at the top of which Kay paused for a moment, was flanked on both sides by almost completely identical buildings, tall gray apartment houses inhabited by the poor. Yeah, and it's like, do all these people all in on the fact that there are these court proceedings that go on in their neighborhood?
They seem to be, and some of them, like the usher and the usher's wife, clearly work for the court.
Yeah.
But then a lot of these people don't work for the court, and and this is where Kay is probably at his haughtiest.
Yes, right. Which might have actually, if there is a logic to this all, like the speech that he gives in front of the inquiry, in front of the court, is so arrogant that if there's logic to it, that might have been a really bad move.
Yeah, so here's just a sample of some of what he says. What has happened to me, Kay continued somewhat more quietly than before, and constantly searching the faces of those in the front row, which made his speech seem slightly disjointed. What has happened to me is merely a single case, and as such of no particular consequence, since I don't take it very seriously. But it is typical of the proceedings being brought against many people. I speak for them, not for myself. So he's trying to maintain his dignity, his sense of superiority, in the face of just people who he can't read. Like, he can't read whether the crowd is on his side or against him.
Yeah, I think at some point they start
or-
cheering and he thinks that it's for him, but it turns out that it wasn't at all.
Or we just don't know. Like, and it's more like we're in his head and he fluctuates in terms of thinking whether they're for or against him.
Right.
You know,
There's a point where the judge is leafing through the examining magistrate is leafing through a notebook and says, "Okay, so you're a house painter?"
Yeah.
And so he's like, "No, I'm the chief financial officer of a large bank." And so this makes him angry. Is like, this is, I think, one of the things that sets him off. Like, this is how you your notes aren't even right. And at one point he tries to snatch the notebook that the judge was leafing through. And he does grab it, but he doesn't see what's in it. And then later on we see
we see what's in it. Yeah.
Which was just really a great.
Just pornography.
It's just porn. The judge just had porn. It reminds me of Lebowski when that guy is like writing the scene.
Exactly. I wonder if that was almost an omen.
I know, yeah. So I'm referring to the scene in The Big Lebowski when, what's the name of the pornographer house guy? The guy. But anyway, it seems like he's writing a really important secret message from a phone and he was just drawing a dick.
Yeah, so he thinks these are the law books where I'll find out something crucial about my case, and
That's
it's just this naked man and woman on a couch.
And he, in order to even get that notebook, he like really flirted hard with the wife of the court usher, only to find out that there was nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah. This episode of Very Bad Wizards is brought to you by the I Am Bio podcast. Where do biotechnology, politics, patience, and our planet all intersect? Find out by listening to the I Am Bio podcast. I Am Bio brings you powerful stories of biotechnology breakthroughs, the people they help, and the global problems they solve. This spring, I Am Bio dives into today's important issues, such as what are the biggest threats to our planet's water supply? What are the latest Alzheimer's research findings? And how is biotech addressing the addiction crisis? Speaking of kratom.
Yeah, exactly. We should connect these two. Crossover event.
Exactly. The podcast is hosted by Dr. Michelle McMurray Heath, President and CEO of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization. A medical doctor and molecular immunologist by training, an MD, PhD, fancy, Dr. McMurray Heath has spent her career helping patients benefit from cutting-edge innovations. If you're looking for a place to start, I have a episode recommendation. I just listened to the episode on the banana and the problem of bananas
nearly getting wiped out, possibly getting wiped out because they're all clones, and the potential solutions that we might have via biotechnology to save our beloved Cavendish banana. So get answers on how biotechnology is changing our world. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll have a link in show notes to the I Am Bio podcast. Our thanks to the I Am Bio podcast for supporting this episode of Very Bad Wizards.
All right, so that's chapter 4. The other thing he says is, like, once he feels like he's lost the crowd, he kind of turns on them and then, again, tries to put himself above everybody by saying, like, I know you're, to the judge, I know you're signaling them. Just be open about how you're signaling them to...
Right, because he saw him make some movement to somebody else.
But then, like, the proceedings end because of, like, a domestic dispute between the usher and the usher's wife. And so then he just goes back.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's no order to this. Like, there is also just a description of the people in the crowd. The faces that surround, I'm quoting now, the faces that surrounded him, tiny black eyes darted about, cheeks drooped like those of drunken men. The long beards were stiff and scraggly, and when they pulled on them, it seemed as if they were merely forming claws, not pulling beards. There's an image, this is hardly worth mentioning, but there's the very first episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation is critically panned, but the scene is of a trial that Picard is put under and the rest of the crew. And there is just a rabble of crowd yelling, and he has absolutely no idea what he's being put on trial for. Now reading this, it has to be like that like that confusion, the crowd yelling non-contingently, cheering or booing,
right,
and you not knowing what you're accused of,
or even if they're paying attention,
it seems really plausible to me that at the end of this, maybe he wasn't even in a court, like he was just talking to some old guy.
Right. Right. I mean, there are a few things that make it seem like they know who he is, but not really.
Yeah.
Chapter 4 opens, and this is, again, maybe telling. He doesn't get any notification to come the following Sunday, but it says when the expected notification had not arrived by Saturday evening, he took it as an implicit summons to appear again in the same building at the same time. Again, like, why is he going? I think this is where another arc is him feeling in control,
exactly,
and starting to lose control, and this is another case where he gets to decide when they have the proceedings, so he thinks.
That's right.
But no, they're not happening. They didn't call him,
and he goes to the same room, and rather than find that hall, which in my head was big, like a big hall full of people, is just a living room.
Yeah.
And again, like absurd, like a dream.
Yeah,
like
how is it the living
that
room? Like, how could it fit all those people and now be a living room?
Yeah, and in fact, the woman who had caused the commotion, or had been the cause of the commotion that ended the trial, says she's the wife of the usher, and for the proceedings, they use our living room, and we just move the furniture to the sides.
Right. Yeah, that's another way that the law just bleeds into everyday life.
Right.
Like, we'll get another example of that in the flogging chapter, but like like there's residential life, there's professional life, and there's the law, and it seems like the law is just, it's intertwined in them, like the Red Room in Twin Peaks. It's like another dimension of these other areas, these other spaces.
That's right. Yeah. So she says, we live here rent free, but we have to move our furniture out on days when the court is in session.
I like that there are little explanations, the painter in the bed. It's like, it's not a satisfying explanation by any means. It's like, well, still, how did they fit all those people? Like, why do you accept that?
Yes, so many questions you would ask, if you were in Kay's place.
Right, but he never follows up.
But his biggest question is, well, the living room furniture thing doesn't surprise him. What surprised him is that she's married.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the previous, during the actual trial, there had been a guy essentially hooking up with her, and so now that she sees that she's actually married to another guy that was there, the court usher, he's surprised at this. Turns out that husband is kind of a cuck.
Yeah, so this is another arc that you see repeated a couple times where a woman just throws herself at him and he feels kind of a lust for her, kind of like sudden lust for the woman, and kind of feels like, oh, again, it's like, this will bring me satisfaction, and everything is going well. But then the woman also has another person who Joseph K. believes that he is superior to this other person.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's just a law student.
Yeah.
And yet the woman goes off with the student, and then he turns on the woman. This is exactly like what happens to Joseph K. Is like he gets help, he thinks. He gets like, oh, this is like, it's like sexy time. And then no, it's like unconsummated, and he gets jealous and kind of furious.
Right.
And that he's being, treated like this for an inferior.
Exactly. I just have to read when he finally gets the notebook that he's trying to get, that the magistrate has. Kay opened the book on top, and an indecent picture was revealed. A man and a woman were sitting naked on a divan. The obscene intention of the artist was obvious, but his ineptitude was so great that at the end there was nothing to be seen but a man and a woman emerging far too corporeally from the picture, sitting rigidly upright, and due to the poor perspective, turning toward each other quite awkwardly. I love that. It's porn, but it was just poorly drawn porn.
Apparently Kafka had an interest in pornography. So that's one way we're like Kafka.
He's a human being.
So the usher comes back, and she goes off with the law student, apparently to the magistrate, but
he carries her, right? Is that the one where like the law student just like literally carries her because she's been summoned by the magistrate?
And this is where he starts feeling very weak, and the air is stifling, and he has to get out of there, and he has to get help to the exit. Just to get some fresh air. But this is where the first time you see him totally deflated and weak, weak and vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like you were saying, it's sort of a visceral description of being like, he doesn't know what's causing all of a sudden his deep physical weakness, but he's also ashamed of it. Right. Like he doesn't know what's going on. Like, why am I so weak? And he needs to be helped out.
This is like me in Vancouver at the meetup.
Were you ashamed?
I wasn't particularly proud of like passing out from eating too many edibles, and also I was just like, oh, and you just feel like, oh my God, I can't really stand up right now. I might go down. That's how he feels.
I carried you like the law student carried. I carried you to the Uber.
No, the usher.
The usher. This is the description of him starting to feel physically unwell. Kay sat down immediately and propped his elbows on the arms of the chair for better support. "You're a little dizzy, aren't you?" she asked him. Her face was now quite near. It bore the severe expression some young women have precisely in the bloom of youth. "Don't worry," she said. "There's nothing unusual about that here. Almost everyone has an attack like this the first time. You're here for the first time? Well, you see, then it's nothing at all unusual. The sun beats down on the attic beams, and the hot wood makes the air terribly thick and stifling. On days when the traffic of involved parties is heavy, you can hardly breathe." That just felt like to me, like life, the stiflingness of life. Like when there's just a lot of people around and you're under stress, it really is like you can't breathe.
Yeah, you have all these responsibilities and all these it just seems completely overwhelming, and like your chest, it's like caving in on your chest.
Right, exactly.
And it's just so vivid, like that just oppressive,ness and kind of heat and bad air of a place, but then also just feeling like life, like as you say, metaphorically, that just life is closing in on you in a way that is just not sustainable for you.
Yeah, and I like how you were describing about like sort of the move from control to loss of control. This is the first time he needs to humble himself and ask them to help him physically move. And it did strike me as just something like a small version of life. Like the older you get, the weaker you get, and you start needing help. Like you're haughty in your youth, and by the time life has had its way with you, you just need someone to help you get down the stairs so you can get some fresh air.
Yeah, I mean, it is having my dad, who was very old when he died, and just watching those last 10 years, it does kind of symbolize that. It is something we're all headed for, and it's demeaning.
I believe this is what it's called in the Erickson stages of life. There's toward the end, he referred to it as, I think, generativity versus despair. where you don't want to give in. You still want to be able to do things. You still want to have that independence.
There are old people who handle it well, though.
Yeah.
And then there are old people who are fighting every last step of the way.
Like people who want to continue driving when they're 95 years old.
Right. And they just kill 8 people. Fucking old people.
I like that descent into loss of control. And I think maybe we can end with the floggers sort of represent something new. In his, like, not only is he losing control and hasn't learned anything useful, but now like his actions have affected these other people in ways that he could never have predicted. And like, he still, like, his last real desire for control is to like stop them from being flogged. Like, he really does think that he can persuade the flogger to stop doing it.
And even tries to pay them off. All right, well, let's start to wrap up this episode as predicted. I think this definitely needs to go two-parter, and we need to do a lot of analysis. But, you know, in case some listeners are doing a read-along or something like that, we're about to get to the chapter called Flogger. Both of us had read this before, but a long time ago. So, you know, at this point, how did you feel? What was this text up to this point? You know, what are the themes, and do you think that changed by the time you got to the end, or did it just sort of complete the arc that you suspected it would at this point?
Yeah. So, okay, up to this point, what we've discussed about Kay starting off energetically and vehemently, proclaiming innocence, and then trying to do what he wants to do. Given that I had forgotten most of the book, I just wasn't clear whether, the sense that I got of futile but active resistance, the tone shifts, and I didn't know whether it was going to or not. Like, all I really remember was that this book was about a frustrated man who had like this hanging over his head. But I think it does subtly shift in this later part, and it does get darker, and the kind of loss of control is deeper. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually you brought up the flogger as an example. So actually now I see why it might be worth talking about, because I think maybe there's a good breaking point after this chapter. So as you said, in the flogger chapter, he's now starting not to just get himself into trouble, but other people he's interacted with. And two people who came to arrest him, he goes into, he's in his office, and there's he opens up a junk room, and there they are, and there's a flogger that's going to whip them. And the reason they're going to whip him is because Kay complained about them at the trial.
Yeah.
At the proceedings.
Right. In his indignant speech where he was saying, like, I don't know who you guys are or how you carry yourselves, but I even had these two guards come in and eat my breakfast, right? And try to take my undergarments.
And he tries to be magnanimous about it, because he wants to. He's still clinging to that. I'm in the right. I'm a kind of morally righteous party here, and so he says it's not their fault. It's the system's fault.
Right.
It's the larger system. But he's not able to get them off. And in fact, when he tries to bribe the flogger is like, "No, you'll probably just get me flogged next."
That's right. There is something you alluded earlier to the bureaucratic feel of this book, and it does seem like lesson learned. One, what you said about his actions actually having consequences now for other people. It's not just about him. But two, when those guys were saying this is just our job, it really was. It's sort of like, bitching about customer service and getting somebody fired when they were just, all they were doing was doing what they were supposed to be doing. Like, he was being that kind of customer.
But you can't, and this is what's so frustrating about those situations is the person you're really mad at, you can't yell
touch.
at, you can't touch, they'll never even know that you're mad at them. And so you have to take it out on something, it feels like, because it's just so frustrating. And, like it's not like you're going to reach the CEO of Verizon or something like that and tell them your fucking company is just like so poorly run. Like that's just, you can't go anywhere near that. And they put so many barriers in between them and you that like that's this helpless situation.
Yes, it's a true lack of power. And you bring up Verizon, that's exactly what I was thinking, was being on the phone with Bank of America and being so frustrated I don't want to take it out on the person because I know that they're just doing their job. But I also know this thing runs so deep that there's no what can I say? Like, I'm no longer going to give you my business. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And this is Kay realizing this is much deeper than I thought. Like, not only do I not have control over whether these guys arrest me, they don't have control over it. The flogger doesn't have control over it.
Right.
And he never quite learns how deep it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
And just as we never know how
Exactly.
deep these things go,
Yeah.
like, I think it could be a metaphor for government, and like it could be a metaphor for something like the deep state, where there's this idea that even the president, who is kind of the public face of what the government is doing, but there's this shadowy organizations behind that make it inaccessible. But really, even the president or your state Congress people, like those people are also like, you can write them angry letters about voting for some new atrocious like Texas bill that they just did, but they don't give a fuck,
right?
And they won't know about it.
And sometimes they can't do anything. And it does remind me of the feeling like when I was younger. The feeling I had toward authority was like, why don't you just do something about it? And now in like the small authority positions that I have, sometimes a student will say, why doesn't Cornell do this, for instance?
Yeah.
Or like, as if I can do anything. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Right.
There's these committees, and then there's actually behind the committees, there's like a literal corporation that's a board of trustees that have money.
Yeah.
They decide those things. The people on that board of trustees probably feel like, well, it's not just me. It's like every, there's a whole board, so I can't just single-handedly do anything. The president says I can't. The board has to do something. And it's just the nature of hierarchy in a complex society that I think leaves us all kind of alienated.
Yes.
Even if have some amounts of power.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, now I think there is just an easy mapping of Joseph K. and real life, which is a person getting denied tenure. But no real good explanation for why or
that
what.
happens. Yeah. It's no explanation why.
Yeah.
This flogger scene, can I just say, is so surreal because they're in his bank. Like for no reason,
a junk room
in a junk room in the bank, he hears these noises
as he's like leaving for the day.
Leaving for the day, and it really that's the point. That's the part where I thought this more than anything else I read reminds me of Synecdoche, New York, the Charlie Kaufman movie, because that's the kind like all of a sudden the scene will change in a dreamlike way. Like, wait, what? They're in leather. They're like in these leather garments.
And he goes back the next day, and they're still there. They're still like, so it really like, I mean, it's been surreal the whole time, but now, and it's another example of
Shit's
just like
surreal.
Shit getting surreal. The title for the episode. Another example of like the court business being just like superimposed on everyday life,
That's
like
right.
in the bank, it's just like they're in the walls. They can, even though you don't know who they are and there's no way to get to them, they're also everywhere.
Yeah.
Like God.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it's so evocative of so many things. I will say this is a good breaking point because one shift in it, now that he's kind of lost control, he gets a little more docile.
Yeah.
And he's led around to people who are offering more specific help. And here you get more of a deep dive into not the details of the legal system, but the circles that everyone has to run around to try to like figure out how to negotiate something that's ultimately not negotiable.
That's right.
So you're going to get a lot in the next bit, just more of this just bewildering series of ways of describing how Byzantine the bureaucracy of this legal system is.
But it's all just out of respect for the law.
Respect for the law. All right. Well, we still have a ton to talk about for our next episode, so let's
read it.
Read it. You read it between now and then we'll all talk about it together in 2 weeks. All right. Join us next time on Very Bad with It. Join us next time. All right. Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The greatest boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.